Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Ioka versus Martinez fight. And so if you're on the around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do need, like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Ioka is 31-2-1 with 16 KOs, and Martinez is 16-0 with 9 KOs. This fight is for the IBF and the WBA World Super Flyweight titles. Ioka's last fight was a win via KO in round 7 versus Perez, and Martinez's last fight was a win via TKO in round 11 versus Borneo. Ioka is 34 and Martinez is 32. This is in Ioka's home country of Japan. Ioka is a 4-weight world champion, and this is his second time trying to become a unified super flyweight champion. Ioka's losses have come versus Nietes in 2018 and Rueng in 2014. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I said, this for both the titles. This is Ioka's second chance to become that 2-weight world champion. Like I said, he fought Franco for it the first time, and then obviously drew, and then I believe he had to vacate his belt because he didn't want to fight Nakatani. He wanted to rematch versus Franco. And so, now we've got this fight. Since then, he of course went on to beat Franco and is beat Perez as well. And now he's got this fight, which is a great fight, to be completely honest. I think it's one which is definitely shaping up to have big consequences, if that's the right word. I mean, Jesse Bam Rodriguez just won last weekend and was calling out the winner of this fight. So, money-wise, when you're in the super flyweight division, there isn't really loads of financially huge fights, and I don't necessarily think this is one of them. But probably the biggest name in the super flyweight division at the moment is Jesse Bam Rodriguez. He's the one with the backing of Matchroom and everything like that. So money-wise, they're basically fighting for the biggest payday of their career. And obviously Estrada might fight Rodriguez again because of the rematch clause, so we'll have to wait and see. But for the most part, that's what also could be on the line. But of course, I'm sure they're not really thinking too much about that. I mean, this, like I say, is a huge fight between two great fighters. Ioka, who's an absolute legend of the sport and has achieved so much, and like I say, a 4-weight world champion is no easy feat, and to be able to try and unify as well when he was unified down in the minimum weight division, for him to be trying to unify here as well is just so impressive. And there's a few fighters who have been able to become 3-4-weight world champions and kind of just pick and choose their opponents, pick and choose their champions, and it not be as hard of a feat as you'd imagine. Still very, very impressive, but not as hard of a feat as you'd imagine. But I think becoming a unified champion is just as hard of a feat, because then you are beating the other champions around you, and they are, you're not just trying to beat one guy who is perhaps luckily a champion himself. You are beating the best of the best in the division, and Martinez himself is on a great run at the moment. I mean, he beat Ankayas for the title. He then beat him again to defend it. He then, of course, beat Borneo, and from before that, not really having too many opportunities, being out in Argentina, to then getting that big opportunity versus Ankayas and making it count. And he's just, like I say, on a great run of form at the moment, and he's been putting out good performances and quite destructive performances. I don't think his power is anything too crazy, but I think it's impressive what he's been doing, and I believe he definitely has more than a chance to be able to win this fight. Perhaps he is in the prime of his career, where you could perhaps argue Ioka, not really too much performance-wise, but just perhaps could be on the latter side of his career, perhaps past his best a little bit. Obviously, like I say, there's only a 2-year age gap between the two of them. It's not like Martinez is coming in the much younger guy, but it perhaps seems like that could possibly be the case. It might seem that way. Like I say, in Ioka's home country, Japan, he's used to fighting there. That's where he wants to fight. He's the home fighter for sure. He, like I say, had them 2 defeats, but he's very good in rematches. And I mean, against Nietes, he won the rematch. Against Franco, he won the rematch, and so he is known to be very good at rematches, and in general, an excellent fighter. Like I say, to speak about them more individually as fighters, Ioka, he can fight on the front or the back foot. I think he is very well rounded in them aspects, and often we see him on the back foot doing excellent work. But when he does hurt opponents, he can switch it and go onto the front foot. And I think Perez allowed him onto the front foot a bit more than perhaps I expected him to. But he punished on the front foot as well. He's got an excellent jab. His jab is amazing to see. It's one of my favourite shots that he has, and one of the best jabs that I see around at the moment. And I don't know, it's just the way that he executes it. There's not really too much to set it. It just kind of is in your face, and there's not really like crazy amounts of power or anything, but it's just very consistent, very sharp, very fluid, like a lot of his movements are. And it's just, when he does use it, he can forget it at times, but when he does use it, it's just excellent. And when he pairs it up multiple times, it just looks like it's just excellent. And there's no other real words for it. I feel like you kind of have to either learn the style in which he does it with, or just be able to watch it to be able to fully understand how good it is. His balance is excellent. Like a lot of these lower weight Japanese fighters at the top level, their balance is just excellent. And Ioka's the same. He's got great footwork. He's very accurate. He seems to be able to control the range quite well. Like I say, when he does utilize his jab, he seems to be able to control that range. And Martinez is definitely somebody who is going to want to come into range and be in close. So it'd be interesting to see if Ioka is willing to just be able to keep Martinez off. He has great combinations. Like I say, it's very fluid, the combinations, and he can throw a three-piece combination with one going to the body and two going two different angles to the head, and it just looks so fluid and so natural, and look like he's not even really trying to do it. It just is what comes to him, and yeah, that's impressive. He's got he knows how to change levels well. Like I say, he has beautiful body work, counters very well. He's got that good timing with that overhand that he likes to throw. He has a good chin as well. Strong combinations. Like I say, they look strong. The hooks that he throws look very strong to the head. It's probably one of his more powerful shots. He lets his hands go when he gets you hurt and on the ropes. He's quite efficient with his work though at the same time. Doesn't really seem to waste many shots or unnecessarily throw shots. It does seem to be very controlled and, like I say, efficient at what he's doing. And he pairs up his shots, like I mentioned, very, very nicely. Negatives perhaps about him, like I say, there's the argument that he could be past his peak, past his best. There's nothing really against that. I mean, him winning this fight cements his legacy even more. But if he does lose this one, there's no kind of bad thing about it really. Like, he is still a legend of the sport, and I don't think anything's going to take that away from him at this point in his career. But there is an argument that he is past his peak compared to Martinez being that more of his prime. He can get dragged into a war. This is something that I'm going to be interested in for this fight. There has been fights against Rodriguez Jr. It was the case, against Franco a little bit it was the case, where he does get dragged into a little bit of a war and his footwork kind of drops and he seems to just want to stand and trade. And that's where you can see the inconsistent versions of him. I don't necessarily think we always see the best version of Ioka. I think when he gains a rhythm, gains a flow, and is boxing and moving, that's his best version. But when he wants to stand and trade and forget his jab and hold his feet a bit too long, and that's where I think he's not at his best. And I think he can struggle against bigger guys on the inside as well. And Martinez is the bigger guy a little bit, but he's going to be physically the stronger guy, whereas Ioka isn't really that strong, and he's definitely going to want to be on the inside, and I feel like that's where Ioka can struggle. He's not overly fast anymore. I think his speed has dropped a tad. Martinez isn't really overly fast either, but that's a little thing I wanted to mention. He can stand straight on. Martinez very much does stand straight on. Ioka drops his guard, and he can put his head down a little bit at times, which is what I've noticed. And to speak about Martinez as a fighter, he's aggressive. He's a pressure fighter that often overwhelms you. That more traditional South American style. I think there are certain aspects which we've seen from him where he can move well and he can box on the back foot. So he's not fully just cemented down to a front foot fighter, which some South American fighters are. And he showed that in his last fight, where a lot of the time he kind of was just boxing on the back foot, and it wasn't bad performance from him. Well, I mean, of course, he got the stoppage as well and was winning clearly. But a lot of the time, he is quite aggressive, like I say, pressure, overwhelming, strong, really does try and impose himself physically, closes distance well, fights in close, I think, the best. He's got an excellent work rate. He is going to be moving as well as he is in the first round to the ninth, to the 10th, to the 11th round. Plants his feet well. He's got footing shots when he likes to throw and let off them combinations. He's quite consistent in his work, and I think the versions of him we see are more consistent of, I think he is consistently good. Like I said, they're not always the same performances. I think against Nkais in the first one, he was front foot bullying him. In the second one, he was doing his boxing a little bit more. Against Borneo, he was front foot bullying him and boxing a little bit. So, we're not. He seems to be consistently good, is just to say the least. And like I say, he pairs up his shots well as well. He's got a good chin as well. Always responds when he gets hit. So Ioka, who's a counterpuncher himself, is probably going to have to deal with Martinez wanting to respond. I feel like he probably has. Well, he has faced people like this Ioka, but just at this point in his career, I'm not too sure. It's going to be interesting to see if he can still deal with it. Negatives about Martinez: I think he can be reckless, can be too eager, can force to fight, can be there to be hit. I think he's able to finish. His ability to finish fights isn't always excellent. I think he was coming into that Ankayas fight being seen as quite a powerful puncher and being seen as somebody who is going to be a power threat to a lot of fighters in the division, but Ankayas seemed to be able to weather the power of him and then went up to fight Takuma Inoue and then got dropped with the power, and so that might say something, it might not, but I don't necessarily know how good his actual finishing ability is. Can load up on his shots and then become a little bit predictable. So Ioka, who is smart and like I say does counter well, might be able to see them coming. He does stand straight on, so he's very much there to be hit, like I mentioned. Can be outboxed, and Ioka, if he sticks to his movement, there is definitely a formula in which Ioka can win this one. He headhunts a little bit at times, has a lack of a jab, does rush in, doesn't really counter too well. I think he always responds, but I don't think his counters or his timing is anything excellent. He has a bit of a lack of a guard, his chin can be in the air, and he can jump into range as well at points. Ioka is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Martinez is going to win via unanimous decision. I feel bad going against Ioka, and I'm not rooting for anybody in particular in this fight. I don't mind who wins, it's just my prediction who I think's going to win. But yeah, I just believe Martinez could just be a bit too much for Ioka in this point in his career. It is a bold shout, and it definitely could come to not be true. But I think Martinez is just going to be able to, like I say, be in his face. If Ioka does stand there and try and trade, then I think he's going to have a long night. I don't think he's going to stop him, Martinez, because like I say, Ioka has a good chin. But I just don't know if I couldn't see Ioka consistently moving around the ring or hurting Martinez to be able to get him on the back foot like he did against Perez. I'm not sure if I can see it. I think Martinez is going to get caught with shots. I just don't think he's going to get discouraged by Ioka's power, even though he definitely does have power, Ioka. And yeah, I just think in the end he's going to be able to overwhelm him and then be able to win via, like I say, unanimous decision, which is a huge win for him. Like I say, in Ioka's home country, when he's the home fighter, it's a huge win for Martinez. And then who he could go on to fight, Ioka again could be an option. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Rodriguez could be an option, like I said, like I was mentioning before. Estrada could be a fight. Gonzalez could be a fight. There's a few big fights there, most definitely. And so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you need, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.